Hello, my friend, wherever you are. I'm sending you love, the power of positivity, and vitamin D. Let me do a little vitamin D somewhere out there. See all the palm trees? They're coconut trees, my bad. And I believe the name of the street is Quan or Con. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I can, it's just I don't remember the word, but if I see it, I can try. So remember the vocabulary thing. If you say you can't, then chances are you're not even willing to try. Quantana Rue or Avenue Quantana Rue. There you go. At least I tried. That's racist. But my friend, welcome to the Gazillionaires Club. In the back is pretty much where people get water, and I think those 5 gallon, they are oh god, I saw it earlier. It shouldn't be that. Oh, it 10 peso for 20 liters, right? But people usually come with a 5 gallon one. So dang, that's very affordable. Water is actually very affordable here. Coke, sodas are actually more expensive. But my friend, we're still in Mexico, so I just got this fruit. It's kind of like a bowl. It's like another like $2.50, or close to $3, 70 peso. So it had a bunch of mixed fruit in it. But my friend, last night, what I did was I was on the internet and I started searching more, because the reason why I ended up in Mexico, first of all, was because of the travel restrictions. There was no travel restrictions. And I think the Mexican government are pretty smart about it. I mean, they were like, because the way that I see it, like the majority, like I said, when I first came to Merida, 90% of the people in the country are wearing a mask. And what I found out is that people here, some of them are scared as well, but the majority of people are wearing it because they are considerate of other people. Are you for real? And when I got to Cancun, about 90%, but a lot of the tourists are the one that don't wear a mask. And I was like, man, that's fucking genius, right? Because think about it. If you are poor and you are wearing a mask because you're afraid to die, and the people that are not poor, because usually tourists are considered to be wealthy people, and if they don't wear a mask, either they understand something or they just don't care if they die. But usually people have something, they're usually afraid, but it's quite the opposite. When you have nothing to lose, you're not afraid. You don't do me, I do me. So therefore, I think it was a genius move with Mexico when they did that. We're like, well, we just bring all the tourists in, and people that like to travel, or people that are very open-minded and they have money, they have the resources, they understand, it's a risk that they're taking, but then it's a smart kind of risk, So I was like, and then second was like living expenses, well, definitely tropical weather, but then living expenses, right? I was like, man, I read somewhere it was like anywhere like 1,000 to 1,500, but I've been giving myself 1,000 a month, including rent and just basic spending. Nothing lavish, but basic spending you can get by with $1,000, right? Then, and it depends on some part of Mexico, but last night, a lot of more countries are start opening up now. I believe Romania, Norway, Iceland, and Costa Rica, and then the country and El Salvador. So countries are slowly opening up to this pandemic. And the reason why I keep saying it's a pandemic, because did COVID actually happen? Yes, it did. Was there a flu? Yes, there was. But the amount of exaggeration and fear were spoon-fed to the people, it crossed the line. You are the instrument to my words, the jelly to my peanut butter, the sunlight to my life, the shit to my toilet paper. And what I mean by that, people that die from cancer, obesity, high blood pressure, diabetes, we don't ever mention anything about it. And the fact that data are being manipulated, that's a big no-no. You know, that's criminal. But therefore, you know, let's put that aside. Like, some of the countries that I've mentioned, I mean Costa Rica, because they're still in the same region. So I heard it anywhere from 12 to 1500. So, you know, when I go out and I eat and I show you the stuff, like what I'm getting and how much, you know, because a lot of the time I do go back and I watch my own videos. I watch it because it's so memorable. Like sometimes I would even go, like right now when I do the video editing for my road trip, I was like, man. And I remember when I was doing, like, I was on my road trip, I was doing the video editing when I was in Seattle. And even before the pandemic, I was like, it's you know, it's like a personal journey for me. Even if nobody's watching it, I'm watching it. But I know eventually people will. So it's kind of like me documenting, like, you know, like the living expenses, like when I go and I travel. And I think that's pretty awesome. You know, thank you for sticking with me, watching, you know, my videos and you know, like, I found out that, you know, Iceland, Norway, living expenses are much, much higher than the United States. I think it's like by 20%. Costa Rica, El Salvador, kind of somewhere along with Mexico, and Romania. I would love to check out Romania. Like there are two countries next to Romania. I forgot which one they were, but I used had because, you know, he's back in Seattle, and he wasn't like a friend of me directly, but he's a friend of a friend. But I do consider him my friend. His name was Radu. And he's like the coolest cat that I've met, you know, and he's from Romania. So when I looked at it, I was like, oh, I have a friend there, but he's not from there. He's here in the US in Seattle. So, you know, Romania, like living expenses, man, I read it somewhere last night, but I think it's a lot more affordable. It's probably around with Mexico, 800 to 1,000 a month. And, you know, this is including rent and stuff like that. And then I was like, for the sake of doing research, you know, because like living expenses are like different in certain areas. So what happened was I was looking at, I went to Vietnam because it's been so long since I went back to Vietnam. And the last time I went back to Vietnam to visit my grandma and check out, you know, from the north to from the south to north, I didn't make it to the north because I ran out of money. I remember, I think I had like 1,500 that lasted for like 3 months because I had a friend at the time, and he kind of helped out with, like, you know, with most of the expenses, and I appreciate that. But I ran out of money when I was traveling because I wanted to explore like the countryside, national parks, temples. So I was curious. I was like, okay, how much is it? What is the average living, you know, expense in Vietnam? And it turned out to be like 500 or 600, and I was like, holy crap! So, you know, like, and here's the thing: no matter where you are, right? No matter where you are in the world, the money that you make most likely is going to be just enough for where you are. The reason why, you know, I'm able to see the living expenses varies from one place to another is because I travel, and a lot of travelers, they know this. But if you live in one area, even if you make like $10,000 a month in New York, I'm assuming there's more, living expenses and everything is gonna, like, you're still going to be paycheck to paycheck. Living in Japan, you know, living expenses there are high, Norway, Iceland, but still people are living, and, you know, the amount of paycheck that they get, it goes back into the system, right? Inflation. And it makes you wonder, like, why? And my friend, I don't know the answer. If you know the answer, let me know. But I think it has to do with fiat currency. It's kind of like a game. But if you live in that one area, then most likely it's just gonna be like enough, you know. And it goes back to that social status. Depending on what kind of education you have, what kind of job you have, the higher up, then you get paid more, right? And even in countries that are making like $500 to $500 a month, their living expenses is going to be a lot lower, and it's something to think about. So if you have like a $500,000 house in the U.S. or Canada, I recently saw this in Nomad Capitalist, right? And you don't have any debt on it, why not sell the house? Get a passport or just move to another country where you can get a house for like $50,000 or $100,000 and start building from there. Because when I was in Vietnam, or even in the US, I travel and I ask people, have you ever traveled? The majority of people, because Vietnam is a very small country, and I asked people like, do you travel? The people were like, no. Because people are so busy with making a living, just like any of us, right? We're so busy with making a living, we don't get a chance to explore what is outside of it. And for me, that's something that I want to share with you when I travel. And like I said, I try to mention all the food that I eat and how much, so you can have an idea. But there's always options. Okay, don't think that you have to be at one place. Because you might be a lot more, like if you are in Canada and you are in the US, my friend, you are very fortunate than most of the people. Even in Mexico, people say Mexico is a poor country compared to the US and Canada, probably in some other country in Europe, but still Mexico is still a pretty decent country. You see a lot of ballers here. You go, but a lot of investments, they're like hotels and stuff like that, so they're outside investment. But I mean, maybe where you are, there are people that are less fortunate out there, and if you can figure out a way, and you already have some kind of asset, do some research. So my friend, that's what I want to share with you in this video. The takeaway is like, living expenses in other countries, from low to high, and wherever you are, do some research, go out there, search for your freedom, take action. So my friend, much love. Get this conversation going. Use the hashtag #GazillionairesClub, and I will see you in the next video. Much love. Tada.